So, Sri Akal, welcome to I'm a Brown Girl. My name's Amma. You might have raised an eyebrow at the title, but let me explain what today's episode is about. For me, life has felt like a fresh start over the past 6 years. I feel like I was reborn at 20, and that was around the time I made the decision to leave home, and there was a lot happening in my life that made a significant impact. If you know me, my entire podcast has been based around sharing my experience of unlearning things that I've grown up with, leaving a toxic home, very major life events that I've been extremely vulnerable in sharing. Having restarted my life at 20 and relearning my identity, friendships, relationships, environments, it really helped shape who I am today. Each year of growing older has been like a new chapter in my rebirth. It allows me to be a lot more kinder to myself because every experience I've had, good, bad, ugly, has always taught me a lesson and I've grown from it. I truly believe it gets better with time. I feel more sure of myself and I'm excited to see who I'll become and the woman that I'm growing into. And I'm loving that journey so far. I hope my title makes a lot more sense now that I've explained myself. But I think with the pressures of society, especially being a brown woman and the expectations I have upon me that, I need to be married by a certain age and have kids by a certain age and X, Y, and Z, having the mentality of a rebirth and being kind to myself and, taking every year as it comes allows me to appreciate my journey a lot more. And even if I do make a mistake, last year, this year, next year, in my brain, I'm like, well, it's fine. I'm only 5 years old. How would I know that? I'm relearning. Obviously, I've just turned 26. I'm not silly, but it's just a nicer and a kinder way for me to think about age and take away a lot of the pressure, which I don't need. Firstly, before I get into today's episode, I'm not trying to sound all mysterious and, original, but I kid you not, having turned 26, I felt like I woke up and something just clicked. I feel a lot more calmer. I feel like I can actually think straight. And I just give less of a shit, quite frankly. And it's really nice. I feel at peace. I feel good. For the longest, I've been saying that I don't feel like myself. I don't feel like I can think straight. I've experienced an incredible amount of stress over these past few months where I felt feelings of despair and genuine panic, just like that feeling of being unable to think straight was quite horrible because I want to use my rational mind, but with the amount of stress I was experiencing, it was really hard. Now that I'm mature and I'm 26, I feel like I'm joking. Of course, I haven't figured it all out, but either way, I'm just liking the wisdom that comes with age. And of course, I'm not I know it all, but it's really nice to be able to think straight. I can't explain it. If you know, you know, but if you've experienced something like this, please reach out. Let me know. Am I the only one? Because I don't think so. But as I said, you do become wiser with age and it's really nice. That being said, similar to last year, I did 20 things that I've learned since turning 25 to celebrate my birthday and share some advice and just things I've learned that hopefully would share some light on you guys and maybe help you in some of the things that you're struggling with, or just a nice reminder that, I too am human. I am vulnerable on the internet. I'm still learning, and it's nice to share some of the things that I've learned that hopefully can help you as well. For this year, I've decided to do 6 pieces of advice that were very fitting for the things that I've struggled with this year, things that I've learned, things that I hope can help you as well. And it's a nice way for me to also look back in a couple of years, as I do with a lot of my episodes actually, to be like, wow, it's interesting how I used to think, or this is what I've learned over time, and this is how I've developed as a person. And I really do hope that this advice helps you if you're, also in your mid-20s or whatever age you are. I just hope it helps. And to be clear, I'm not a life coach. I don't know it all. I might not have the most original experiences, but these are my experiences and I do hope they help. And plus, I can't afford a therapist right now. So my podcast is a wonderful way for me to share some advice and just talk it out on the internet. And I hope you guys enjoy. The first lesson I've learned over this past year is sabr, which means patience. I know it sounds really cliche, but it's changed my perspective and I understand patience a lot better from a different perspective. I used to be very impatient in terms of wanting things to be done immediately and wanting answers immediately and things wanting to be sorted out immediately. It was very impulsive in some situations, and I didn't appreciate patience as I do now. Unfortunately, life doesn't work like that and things will unfold within their own time. Instead of overthinking and stressing, I've just learned to go with the flow. I have to trust that things will happen when they're supposed to. Sometimes you just have to sit back, breathe, and let life do its thing. You can't change something that is not in your control. Whatever is meant to pass me or be in my life will never miss me. So that has really helped me overthink less and stress less about things that I can't control. The second biggest point that has affected my life positively over the past year is culture and adaptability. If you don't already know, I went traveling for a few months and came back at the start of this year, and it really changed my mindset towards my culture. I loved solo traveling across Southeast Asia and spending time with my family and relatives in Punjab and actually spending time in the village and, not being on my phone. It really made me present and fall in love with my culture. I was always proud, but I feel even more connected to my roots, and that has really shown in my identity now. And I feel a lot more passionate about wanting to represent my culture, my roots, my identity, my culture, everything. My sister recently just got married as well. So it was a big fat Pakistani wedding. And wow, have I learned a lot in terms of how chaotic and stressful and fun and loving it is, because you have all the family together and obviously tensions are high, but it's also really fun because it's really traditional and I've loved every minute of it. And even the chat shit aunties, I've always spoken quite negatively about chat shit aunties in terms of how they make other people feel, as well as having a lot of empathy towards them. But this wedding has made me realize that, do you know what? Chat shit aunties are an integral part of our culture and they do make a big difference. And I understand why they are the way they are because, quite frankly, they're miserable. But they're an important part of our culture and you gotta love them to some degree because they can really add an impact to certain environments, especially a wedding. And I guess it's made me appreciate them a little bit more because I feel sorry for them, quite frankly. But even this wedding has made me like chat shit aunties ever so slightly. So even though my upbringing has been in the UK majority of my life, I feel that having spent time in Punjab and experiencing my sister's wedding and being around the culture has helped me stay rooted and reminded me that, yes, I'm British and I'm very modern and Western and very open-minded. And I love the things that I guess my British side bring out of me. But my foundation is Punjabi, Indian, proud to represent. And that is what makes my identity. The third thing I've learned over the past year might be a little bit controversial, but it is my personal experience, which is maturing is realizing that you don't need to tell your friends every little detail of your life, that there is beauty in privacy. I know we live in a culture where, your best friends and your friends need to know everything and you share everything and blah, 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 which I understand. I'm all for sisterhood and having very deep and intimate relationships with your girlfriends, especially as a woman. I would not be where I am today without my girlfriends and the support that they've offered me this year alone. I would not be here without them. So I'm very, very grateful for that. However, over this past year, I've been very selective about who I share my deep, dark secrets with, I guess, and just the general information I share with a lot of my friends, not because I think they're out to get me or that they can't be trusted, but people can't ruin what they don't know. And I know that sounds kind of horrible, but I've kind of enjoyed making decisions for myself because I lived a very long time feeling like I can't think straight, and having opinions from other people kind of made it difficult for me to think for myself. And now that I've made a lot of decisions for myself, I feel like I trust myself more and I don't need to feel like I need to run to my friend and be like, hey, I'm about to do this, or what do you think? Da, 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 da. I'm really enjoying the privacy that comes with it and the fact that I'm able to trust myself more. I could say there's probably 2 people in my life who know me inside out, all my dark secrets, that I feel no hesitation about sharing anything and everything with them. That is just because I know them for so long and I trust them wholeheartedly. But even then, I don't tell them everything and anything about my life there and then as it's happening. Sometimes I'll tell them later, just because I want to have the opportunity to live my own life on my own terms. And they're the kind of friends that even if I don't tell them about something, they know me so well that they can pick up on my energy. They won't judge me. They won't tell me off for not telling them sooner and wanting to have that privacy, which I really appreciate. The 4th lesson is discipline, which for me is a non-negotiable. Because my mood at the end of the day is something that I do have control over and it is fixable. But discipline is something that you just have to do. Otherwise, the things you need to get done don't get done. Discipline is something that I think I'm really good at and I always have been good at just from quite young, because I moved out when I was quite young and I realized that people are not going to do things for me unless I do them myself. And that can be as small as laundry or cooking myself a meal to making very big life decisions. And that has meant that I've really had to discipline myself in some of the routines that I have in my life because it keeps me in check. And it's not to the point where I'm robotic, but if I don't do certain things in my day, things don't get done. And then it's just a domino effect. It doesn't help me feel good in wanting to achieve the things I want to achieve because I'm such a driven person and I know that no one's going to do it for me but myself. I've always said that if you are someone who struggles with discipline, I know it's not easy, but try to do the hard thing first and then get on with the rest of the things that you need to get on with. And maybe it's because I'm a Virgo and I flipping love a list. Maybe it's just in my blood that I was born to be organized. I mean, it is a huge part of my zodiac sign, but I love a list. I love organization. So I guess I use that to my benefit. Number 5, and possibly the hardest lesson I've learned this year, is accountability. It's never fun being told that you're wrong and you've hurt a friend or you've said something that a friend is offended by, because I've definitely been there. And sometimes my ego wants to get in the way and say, oh, but they're just overreacting, or how can they say this to me? Or my friend should know that I'm not a bad person. But taking accountability is really important. And I've learned that if my friend is coming to me and saying that, hey, Amma, you've said X, Y, and Z, and I've not liked that, you should count that as a blessing because your friend feels comfortable enough to actually pull you aside and share their feelings on something that you've said or done that has upset them. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't ask questions to better understand them, to, make sure that isn't repeated in the future. But taking accountability in terms of apologizing, actually validating their feelings is really important. It doesn't matter if you didn't mean to upset them, because of course you'd like to think your intentions are pure. My intentions are pure. I would never want to hurt my friends. I don't want my friends to feel upset by something I've done or said. But if they're coming to me and they're upset about it, I am going to take it seriously. And I will do everything I can to make sure that's not repeated in the future. But sometimes I'll be so honest, yes, my ego wants to get in the way and be like, oh, why are they being like this? Or why are they overreacting? But taking accountability can be hard sometimes, especially if you don't understand where your friend is coming from. But to be understood is to be loved. And that goes both ways. I am the kind of person where I'll immediately be like, I'm sorry. Please let me understand this. How can we move forward from this? I don't want you to feel like this ever again. You apologize, you validate their feelings, and you move on from it. And you don't hold grudges. Most importantly, don't hold a grudge. If you're going to hold a grudge, keep it to yourself for a second. But that's something you need to really work through, because holding a grudge just creates resentment in the future. And that's not a healthy friendship. And you don't want that for yourself, because there's no growth in that friendship. You can't expect there to never be conflict, romantic, platonic, any relationship. So for the fact that there is conflict, see it as an opportunity to learn, to grow, to drop your ego, to take accountability and move forward from that. The sixth lesson I've learned over the past year is forgiveness. And my sixth lesson actually on my script was completely different. But now that I'm recording, I'm really sitting here with my thoughts and realizing that it's forgiveness that was one of the biggest themes for me over this past year. Even the year before that, I went through a lot and I had people disappoint me. And even me having made lots of mistakes as well, I had to forgive myself. Forgiveness is so incredibly difficult, but also the only way to set yourself free from the burden of having to think about it late nights and overthinking and stressing about a certain situation that happened and you wish it went a different way, but it didn't. But forgiveness is the only way you are going to move forward. There's so much advice on the internet around forgiveness. And I've spoken about forgiveness before and said something along the lines of, if you don't want to forgive, you don't have to, which I still do agree with to some degree. But having forgived a lot over this past year, I realized that forgiveness is less about the other person or the situation, but more about yourself. I think I've grown into a person who has to forgive to be able to move on for myself. And that doesn't mean that I have to agree with the situation or still keep that person in my life. But for me to be able to sleep in peace, I need to be able to forgive and move forward. Forgiveness is a very tricky emotion to deal with. I feel like sometimes it's mixed in with grief, which makes it a lot more harder. And that has been something that I have experienced a lot of over the past few months. But having forgived and moved on, it has set me free. I don't stay in the past anymore. I am more present. I'm moving into the future and I'm very excited for what the future is to bring. And I no longer am vibrating on this dark energy or this sadness where I'm constantly thinking about how I was wronged or a certain situation because it doesn't serve me anymore. So overall, those would be the 6 points of advice and lessons I've learned over the last year or so. I hope you guys learned something about yourself or even me, or maybe you were able to relate. If you were listening in and you thought, oh my God, I had a similar experience and I would love to share, please feel free to. You know, my DMs are always open and it's a safe space. Before I wrap up this episode, you know, I always love to do a check-in. Having a good relationship with my parents was definitely not on my 2025 cards. I did not foresee it. I did not think it would be where it is at right now. And best believe my parents have made me experience all the emotions of grief, forgiveness, happiness, sadness, everything. I have gone to hell and back to get to where it is today with them. And I'm very proud of myself and them. Guys, I've actually gone through hell with my parents and it's actually gotten so much better to the point where I can't even believe it. My mum has literally been my backbone this year in terms of the experiences and the hardships I've gone through. There was a point a few months ago where I was unable to get out of bed. I was not eating. And I literally called her and I was a bit teary and she was like, right, I'm coming over. And I kid you not, for 2 weeks straight, she made sure I was sleeping well, I was comfortable. She fed me everything that I wanted and really took care of me. And if she wasn't there for me at that point, I don't know what I would have done. Even on my birthday, she surprised me first thing in the morning and she came with some food and just wished me happy birthday. Even though I was on a trip on the way to Bath, I was going with my best friend Jess. She made sure to show up and just wish me happy birthday, which I was so grateful for. It's not even about the grand gestures and the big presents or anything like that. But just for the fact that she showed up meant so much to me because that's never happened before. And I'm so happy that this year, finally, after 26 years, my mum can actually do that and show up and we can share love, which is beautiful. She also bought me my first ever Pandora bracelet, which I absolutely love. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a heart-shaped charm with the word daughter and my birthstone, which is green. I can't remember which one it is, but I've always wanted a Pandora bracelet, but never ever told anyone. And she actually bought it for me and gave it to me as a surprise. And I was lost for words. And this is something that I will never, ever take off. And it's just things like that that I am so grateful for because it's very sentimental to me. And I never thought I'd be able to speak about my mum like this. And I'm very grateful. In terms of my mental health, I'm doing so much better. I'm actually happy. And yes, there are things that are still stressing me, but I'm so sure of myself in terms of the universe having me and trusting that everything is working out for me and not stressing about things that are not in my control has really helped me have better days and not be sad and have good mental health. And I hope to continue like that. But I also think that has come with age. I'm not trying to sound like the, oh my God, I'm so mature. I'm 26 now. I know it all, because I don't. I just really am showing my true experience of like, guys, I actually feel like I can think straight. I've never felt like this before and I love it. I know a lot of these end of episode check-ins are for me to share how I'm doing and just share my mental health. And it's always nice having people reach out and sharing their stories in my DM, which I am forever so grateful about. I really appreciate hearing your stories and just your life updates as well. But use these check-ins as an opportunity to ask yourself, how are you doing? That brings me to the end of this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this episode as much as I enjoyed creating this episode. It means a lot to me for anyone who engages with my page, my content, anything and everything. I really appreciate it. Take a moment to reflect on your own life, even the past few months, the past year. How have you really been doing? And if you haven't done so, maybe it's an opportunity for you to check in, journal, see how you're doing. But on that note, I thank you for watching. I thank you for listening. Thank you. Dhanyavad. Sat Shri Akal. Bye.